War, where the genesis of Australian armour took root between 1918 and 1939. During this pivotal era, Australia did not yet possess its own manufacturing plants for heavy armour, meaning Australian crews were tasked with operating British-made heavy tank Mark V units on the Western Front. These men were the pioneers, the first generation to master the art of armoured warfare inside these claustrophobic iron beasts. One of the most legendary stories from this period is that of the Mephisto, an A7V German tank that remains the only surviving specimen of its kind in the entire world. In a display of extreme bravery and technical skill, Australian troops conducted a daring night raid in 1918, dragging this abandoned German monster across the lethal expanse of no man's land to secure it as the ultimate war trophy, a prize that still sits as a silent witness to history today. As the interwar years progressed, the Australian Army finally acquired its first officially owned vehicles in 1929, purchasing 4 Vickers medium Mark II tanks. Despite the economic strangulation of the Great Depression, these 4 machines were essential in training the commanders who would eventually lead the nation's armored divisions. This was followed by the acquisition of the Vickers light tank Mark VI, fast and nimble machines that became the first vehicles the Australian 6th Division took into the blistering heat of North Africa to face Italian forces. Simultaneously, Australia began its long tradition of modifying equipment to suit its needs, creating the Universal Carrier LP2. While the British were bolting their Bren carriers together, Australian engineers took the radical step of welding the hulls to ensure they were completely waterproof, eventually building over 5,000 of these ubiquitous carriers to support infantry across every global theater of the war. As the world plunged into the darkness of the 1940s, the legends of World War II were forged out of necessity and desperation. Before the arrival of standardized scout cars, the Australians displayed incredible resourcefulness by creating the Blitz buggy, a makeshift armored vehicle made by bolting thick steel plates and layers of concrete onto standard commercial trucks. This scrapyard special may have looked crude, but it was the spiritual grandfather of all indigenous Australian armour. As the conflict expanded, American-made M3 Scout cars and the specialized Australian Dingo Scout car, a lighter, faster variant built on a Ford chassis, became the eyes and ears of the front line, patrolling the vast outback and the rugged terrains of foreign battlefields. The American Honey, or the M3 Stuart light tank, was another favorite among Australian crews who praised its high speed and mechanical reliability during the flanking maneuvers in the deserts of Tobruk and the dense, humid jungles of Buna. Before the arrival of the legendary Shermans, the M3 Grant provided a vital stopgap with its dual-gun configuration, offering the heavy firepower needed to halt the aggressive Japanese advance. In the Pacific, where traditional trucks were swallowed by the mud, the M3 half-track became the indispensable workhorse, hauling troops and heavy artillery through terrain that was otherwise impassable. Even after the guns fell silent, the Staghound armored car, a massive 37mm armed vehicle, played a crucial role as an occupation force in Japan. However, the true jungle queen of Australian armour was the Matilda II. Although it was considered an aging design in the European theatre, in the Pacific, its thick armour made it virtually invincible against Japanese anti-tank weapons. Australian engineers modified these icons with specialized mesh covers to deflect grenades and transformed them into the Frog flamethrower variant and the Hedgehog, which utilized a 7-barreled naval mortar to rain destruction on enemy bunkers from a protected distance. This era of desperation also birthed the Sentinel AC1, Australia's first completely homegrown tank, featuring a revolutionary fully cast hull. This design evolved into the AC3 Thunderbolt and the AC4, proving to the world that Australian engineering could successfully mount the formidable British 17-pounder anti-tank gun. The transition into the Cold War and the Vietnam era between 1946 and 1990 marked a shift toward specialized roles and long-term durability. The Uramba remains a unique piece of history as the only self-propelled gun ever manufactured in Australia, built by repurposing M3 Lee hulls to carry 25-pounder guns. For reconnaissance and liaison, the tiny British-made Ferret Scout car served faithfully for decades, but the true hammer of the Royal Australian Armoured Corps was the Centurion Mark III. These British main battle tanks brought unprecedented firepower to the region, and their evolution into the Centurion Mark V of 1 created a Vietnam legend. By removing the side skirts to prevent the thick jungle mud from clogging the tracks and adding reinforced armor, Australian crews proved that heavy tanks could not only survive but dominate in the jungle, saving countless infantry lives during the intense fighting. This period also saw the rise of the M113A1, affectionately known as the Bucket, which served as the standard battlefield taxi. Australia aggressively modified these carriers, creating the fitter with its hydraulic crane for mid-jungle engine swaps, the M125A1 mortar carrier for immediate indirect fire support, and the M577A1 mobile headquarters for battalion commanders. The most distinct Australian creations of this time were the hybrid fire support vehicles, such as the M113 FSV, which mounted a Saladin turret, and its successor, the M113 MRV Scorpion, which utilized the turret of a Scorpion light tank to provide faster and deadlier direct fire support for the infantry. While the unarmored M548 tracked carrier acted as the mule of the supply chain, the Army eventually replaced the Centurions with the German-made Leopard AS1. These tanks were heavily customized for the extreme Australian heat with rabbit ear, antennas and unique storage bins, serving as the nation's primary guardians for 3 decades alongside the Leopard BRV bridge layer, which could deploy a crossing in minutes. In the modern era, the focus has shifted towards speed, wheel-based mobility and heavy digital integration. The Parenty 6x6, a heavily modified Land Rover, and the Supercat HMT Extender have provided the SASR with the modern equivalent of the Desert Rat's high-speed patrol vehicles. The ASLV, based on the U.S. Marines' LAV-25 but hardened for the grueling outback, became the primary tool for rapid reconnaissance and fire support, proving that wheeled vehicles were the future of Australian mobility. However, the most iconic modern export is the Bushmaster PMV, a mine-protected vehicle that has become a global savior, protecting troops from IED blasts in Afghanistan and beyond. This was followed by the Hawkeye, a lighter and more agile baby Bushmaster, designed for airmobile operations. Even the veteran M113 refused to fade away, being transformed into the M113 AS4 stretch limo, with an extra road wheel and modern armor. To maintain heavy dominance, Australia eventually switched to the American M1A1 AIM Abrams, refurbished and optimized with advanced Australian sensors and communication suites. To support these massive tanks, the Army acquired the M1150 Assault Breacher Shredder and the M88A2 Hercules, currently the most powerful recovery vehicle in the inventory. Today, the Boxer CRV is replacing the ASLV as the world's most advanced wheeled combat vehicle, armed with a 30mm cannon and anti-tank missiles. The future of Southern steel is represented by the AS9 Huntsman self-propelled howitzer and its companion, the AS10 ammunition resupply vehicle, which features robotic arms for automated reloading. Finally, the AS21 Redback infantry fighting vehicle, named after Australia's most lethal Spider, integrates active protection systems to shoot down incoming missiles, ensuring that the legacy of Australian armour remains a formidable force on the global stage for generations to come.